Hello and welcome to Get Focused with Bill Kay and Gina Fay. Hey, Gina.
Hey, Bill.
Okay, so in tonight's episode, if you didn't catch us on our Facebook page, real quick, but we're going to discuss this. Gina had sent me this quote that she had come across on her Facebook, and it really struck a nerve, obviously, with her because she shared it with me, right, Gina? And we wanted to discuss it because of those reasons. How about that? So here we go. So it starts with for those habituated to high levels. Is that the correct saying? Yes. High levels of internal stress since early childhood. It is the absence of stress that creates unease, evoking boredom and a sense of meaninglessness. How about that? Haha. So people may become addicted to their own stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. To such persons, stress feels desirable, while the absence of it feels like something to be avoided. This was Gaber Mate, MD. So I think I got his name correct.
Yeah.
So, so what I'm feeling from that is, so you get comfortable with the feeling without even realizing it, comfortable with the feeling of living in a state of stress. That when the stress is no longer there, you desire it, right? Is that what that's saying? To
You
a
know,
sense.
well, yeah, but it's actually, yes, it is up to a point. But I think the important point that this quote is making is the biophysiological component of it. What happens is if we're in a persistent state of stress, our our bodies are dumping, our brain is dumping the hormones of cortisol and adrenaline. And those are really important when we're in the woods and a bear jumps out at us. They're really important, fight or flight, you
Right.
know, so we run. But if we're in an environment, and many, many, many of us were growing up in an environment which was relentlessly stressful, we develop neural pathways, neurotransmitters to receive that hormone of adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormones. So it feels it's like Cookie Monster being deprived of his cookie.
Yeah. See, and when you sent this to me, it resonates with me, right? So a lot of what I do in the life that I live, as far as dealing with training and teaching and coaching within a retail environment, it, it it's that environment of someone told me a long time ago, being a manager for a retail business or management in a lot of areas, is that you wake up in the morning and the building's on fire, and you spend all day trying to put the fire out, and
Yeah,
when you finally get the fire out, you go to sleep just to wake up and the building's on fire again.
that's
So
right.
so
That's right.
to me, this is kind of hits home where I started to look at myself and say, "Whoa, is this me?" So how?
And that leads us into the potential of, a therapeutic conversation about really what was your childhood like. But that's up to you whether you want to talk about that or not. But I will tell you that more and more people are becoming aware of the impact of early childhood experiences on the wiring of the brain. And I was listening to NPR yesterday, and they were talking about children with a ACE, uh, abnormal. I don't know. I don't remember what the letters, the alphabet soup was, but a teacher was coming to understand that there's a very high correlation between chronic sickness and difficult childhood experiences.
Oh yeah, I could definitely understand that. That
Heart attacks, autoimmune disease, all kinds of things that can befall the body because the mind or the emotions are so dysregulated from the difficult environment that we grow up in.
okay. So and I don't have a problem either way going into the childhood or whatnot, but I'm more curious to, um, how do you, once you recognize, okay, so say, I mean, I'm 44 now, and I recognize that I have these tendencies to, crave stress, right? Certain levels of stress or the environments that put myself in the state of stress.
The
How do you
environment,
go?
the environments don't put you anywhere.
Well, the
It's how
feelings,
you
the
react. It's how you
reactions to it.
react. It's how you react to those environments and the environments you choose.
Okay, so that leads me
Um,
to, how do you, I don't want to say treat, right? But how do you learn, just like I learned different things about my monkey mind and the stories I tell myself, and how to recognize that, you know, take the chance because the story hasn't been written. How do I do that with this type of scenario?
well, I don't know if I ever talked to you about a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know?
I think it's been mentioned, but I don't remember the details.
A fantastic movie, and it's an old movie actually, and even for that, it's trailblazing in that it talks about how we can reprogram. It's been shown clinically that those neurotransmitters in our brains that develop, they develop in response to whatever hormones our our body is dumping for us. And if we find a way to interrupt that pattern, to stop having those so-called negative feelings or the adrenaline dump or the cortisol dump, initially it's extremely uncomfortable to not have those hormones because those neurotransmitters are going, feed me, just like Cookie Monster being deprived of his cookies.
Right, or
However,
just like carbs or sugar or
anything. So, but the interesting thing is that they've shown clinically that if we do interrupt those dumps of hormones, which we don't want to be experiencing all the time, those neurotransmitters go away. They physically go away. Those neurotransmitters in our brain go away.
so how do we go about
Uh,
disrupting?
I lost you for a minute, Bill.
Okay, so how do we go about disrupting those so that they do go away?
Well, I think the first thing is attention and awareness, paying attention to what's going on in your body and interrupting the patterns, recognizing patterns and recognizing that there are alternatives to the patterns that you don't think that there are any alternatives to. And slowing it down, and patience, because it's not something you can just flip a switch and make happen.
Right, just like we've stated many, many times, there is no one answer, right? There is
Well,
no
there's no
single
quick fix.
solution. Yeah.
There's no quick fix either. But awareness, mindfulness, heartfulness, paying attention to what's going on with yourself instead of being propelled by external forces, and noticing the kind of circumstances you're drawn to and the kind of people that you're drawn to, and making different choices around that, exposing yourself to different environments and see if they might feel a little bit better.
I like that. So just being aware is the first step, you would
Being
say.
aware. And so you already have that. It hit home for you. I mean, I remember, I don't know when it was, it's hard to put a timeline on it, but I remember I used to wake up in the middle of the night and worry. I didn't know what about, but I would, and then if I woke up in the middle of the night and wasn't worrying, I was worried because I wasn't worrying about something.
Yeah, like why don't I feel stress?
As silly as that sounds,
No, it 100% makes sense.
yeah,
And I know that there's a lot of people listening that are gonna, it's gonna hit home as well, right? Because it's just, the term addicted. We on a episode, prior episode, we discussed addiction and being addicted to many different things and how we associate addiction with a substance all the time.
Yeah.
But here's an example of being addicted to what gives us a certain feeling, right? And I've
Sure.
heard this in the past with gamblers, for example, right? That I had heard that gamblers desire or addicted to that sense of loss. It's not always winning that drives them. It was the
Yeah.
feeling they get from, which would be similar, because I'm sure it's similar to stress, right? If you lose, you're feeling anxiety, stress, and those neuros fire.
Well,
So
not so much that they fire, they're there to receive the hormone that gets released in that emotional experience.
right, the
They
physical
don't
hormone.
fire. They receive. The
Okay.
neurotransmitters receive, neuroreceptors receive the hormones that are released. So, for example, oxytocin is the bonding hormone.
Right.
So during orgasm, oxytocin is released. During breastfeeding for women, oxytocin is released. Bonding, it's a bonding hormone. So if we have an excess or a lot of bonding experiences, we will have a lot of neuroreceptors
For
develop
that.
to receive the oxytocin. But most of us don't have the good fortune to have grown up in an environment where we're constantly being bonded and constantly being nurtured and constantly being reminded of the closeness that we can have as human beings with one another. Most of us grow up in fairly dysfunctional households, one way or another, because our parents are doing the best that they can, or our environment is doing the best that it can, but it isn't always to our benefit. It isn't always to our favor. So it creates a challenge. So with gambling though, people, if I don't know what the hormone is that gets released in a state of disappointment, but I'm sure there is something.
Right. Right.
And so if a child grows up in an environment where they're constantly being disappointed, then I could imagine that as an adult, they might have a lot of neuroreceptors that will be demanding that same hormone that is released.
Is released when you're disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating to me because it really brings science and your physical being
Oh, yeah.
together with your mental being.
Oh, most definitely. And that,
And
yeah.
it's just such a fascinating topic
Yeah.
because it opens up so many different avenues. Just today, I was talking about, again, sales and technique and everything else, and this is just on another level that because you and I speak about it. What separates people from going down different career paths, and obviously your choice of your career path and what you've been called to. Uh, Somewhere in there, you have receptors for what is released when your
Maybe,
treatment.
maybe not. Maybe not. Um, Either, I don't know. I think it's a little bit more. I don't think that I had the experience growing up of being really listened to fully.
Okay.
In fact, I very much had the experience of being ignored and being unimportant growing up. Where is part of this an innate gift that I have of being able to listen well? Is part of this a reaction to not ever having felt listened to? I don't know.
Right, but in the same aspect, just like you explained, is that being aware can grow to the fact of understanding and making different choices, which in turn will change the receptors
We'll
and
change
what
the
is,
neural pathways. Yeah,
yeah, which is desired.
yeah. And so
So you could have at some point become more aware of what was causing, or what the driving force was, and made different choices, which has led you. And
Yeah.
like you said, sometimes we're not even aware of what's happening, or why we're called to something, or what we're doing. And that's what fascinates me, is that our minds seem to work. And again, I'm not a doctor.
Independently of our conscious awareness
And
sometimes.
then it's like driving the bus, right?
Yeah.
Our mind is driving the bus, and we're just following. We're in the back of the bus for the ride.
That's if we choose to go that way.
Right.
Another way we can do it is choose to be the driver.
Correct. But I do think at some level there's a little bit of both, right? I don't necessarily think you can be fully the driver or fully the passenger, right? That yes, you can be aware, but are we ever fully aware?
I don't know.
Right?
I think it's quite possible to be fully aware.
Yeah.
I think it's, like, what is it? In Buddhism, they have this thing about, it's like a prayer that says something to the effect of, there is tremendous sorrow in the world. I vow to try to address that, even though I know I can't take it away. So it's almost like, you know, I know that the potential for that awareness is there, and so I strive for it. Whether I ever fully achieve it or not is almost immaterial. The fact that it is something I desire and is something that I want to cultivate is all that matters, really.
Well, yeah, because it's like it's that desire to learn and grow and be more aware, right?
Well, and
Uh,
be in charge and not be the passenger. I don't want to be
right.
the passenger. I want to be in the driver's seat as much as possible. It's my life.
Oh, I agree 100%. And that's one of the reasons why we do these episodes, is to figure it out, right? To provoke these thoughts, to not only help us become more aware and discuss what we think and feel, but for others to
Oh,
um,
hopefully.
plant
Yeah.
that seed, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully, help them go from the passenger to the driver's seat of their own bus, right? But
To know,
again, it's
yeah.
so fascinating.
To understand really that we have much more control than we've ever been. We have much more power in our own lives than we've ever been told, really.
Yes, yes, because I 100% remember statements, "Oh, a leopard doesn't change its spots,"
Yeah.
and all these different cliche statements that people, oh, what was a big thing? Marriage, right? Oh, he was that way or she was that way before marriage. What made you think you could change them? Well, no one's going to change the other person, but it doesn't mean the other person doesn't have the capability of change either.
You
And
know,
that's,
that's
I
such an
just,
interesting subject that you bring up. I mean, we could do a whole episode on those, you call them cliches, but they really are rules for living that we get told in our childhood families.
yeah, I agree. Yes, rules for living.
They're
That is a very good,
repeated over and over and over again. And disparaging things about men, disparaging things about races, disparaging things
yeah,
about women, disparaging hopeless things like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Or,
right, exactly.
exactly. But, when we're children, we take those on as the gospel.
Oh, absolutely. Words have meaning.
And unless we're very careful, we bring that belief in them into our adult lives and live it out and play it out every single day.
Well, I have to tell you, one of the most fascinating things to me along this whole journey that we've been on together is just like questioning stress and the adrenaline and what's released, and what are the driving factors, and do people get addicted to it and whatnot. I'm at the point where I question a lot of things on a daily basis, and not question them in a negative, like, is that right or wrong questioning, but what is behind that? Or so, for example, one of the things that I teach very heavily is how we use our words, So, for example, discussing with a client, and you're sitting, you have a customer, and you have to go in, in the automobile business, you have to go to the desk or do something like that. We tend to say, "I'll be back in a sec," or "I'll be back in. Give me a minute," right? And we do this in our normal everyday life. It just kind of comes out without thinking. Well, in reality, you will not be a minute. Okay. If it has any value, it's going to take longer, right? So if I have to take the paperwork, get a trade appraisal, do all this different stuff, and I tell a customer I'll be back in a minute, well, what happens 20 minutes later? They're like, what's going on? It feels like it's been almost an hour, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing of a leopard doesn't change its spots. We're hearing these things and we think that they're just words, but there is a meaning there, and it is kind of seeping in, and that's
it's impacting the transaction one way or another.
Correct. And that's driving the bus, right? At that point.
Yeah.
And once you become aware that a leopard can change its spots and things, those are not reality. Those rules do not dictate life. Then that's when you go from the passenger to the driver.
Yep. The reason that quote that we started off with had so much meaning for me is because in my practice, as I've worked with people more and more, I hear people say, I want to be happy. I just want to be happy. And we talk about what happiness is and what that means to them and so on and so forth.
I was one of them patients.
or I want to be loved. I just want to be loved.
Right.
And so in the course of my working with these people, things happen for them which really appear to be the thing that they've been wanting all their lives. They have an opportunity to be happy, and often they run the other way.
Right.
And so, it's been seeping into my awareness that we have a tendency on all kinds of different levels, physiologically, chemically, but also psychologically. We have a tendency to be afraid of the unknown, to be afraid of what we've never experienced. Even if we tell ourselves we really, 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 really want to experience it, when push comes to shoving it knocks on our door, we often run the other way. We know how to be miserable. We're safe there. It's familiar. And it takes a huge leap of faith to try a different way of being.
It's scary.
It can be scary.
And the unknown.
And it feels safer to continue doing what you've always done. Have unfulfilling relationships, be miserable rather than take the chance of trying something different. And so it operates on every level all at once, I think. The chemical, the biochemical level, the psychological. How do you separate those things?
I agree. I don't see it possible.
But it's so interesting, and it's so I want to say it's unnecessary, but clearly for the people who do it, it's necessary for them to go through that. But it's optional. It's so optional. It's only one way of being.
Correct. But don't you think, and with your experiences in life and my experiences in life, that in order to get to the point where you are aware, you have to go through these steps?
Yeah, I do. Oh, fuck. This is the second time I lost you.
Yeah, I know. I seen it froze up.
Oh,
so, So my question was, with your experiences in life and my experiences in life, do you feel that it's a necessity to go through those things in order to become aware?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Because I know, again, I deal with me being 44. I'm teaching and training what happens to be a lot of 20 to 25-year-olds at a lot of times. And I know what I was like at that point and thought I had it all figured out, and, did listen, but not really type of scenario. And I think about that a lot. What if I would have listened more? But I know I can't. It's not good to do those things, but I do recognize it, right? But then I also look at the opposite side of it and say, I wouldn't be who I am and where I am right now if I would have listened then, right? So to me, just like my tattoo on my arm, the journey, love the journey, not the destination. And I'm very appreciative that I've experienced these things, and I actually look forward to learning and growing and becoming more aware through even more experiences, right?
Yeah. And making what you might define as more mistakes.
Right.
But, I have this vision of the course that we go through in life. And it's, sometimes, well, I used to think that it was like a circle. You start at one point and you go all
Right.
around.
You go back to where you began, right?
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that it's more like it's a spiral, and
Okay.
there are points along that line that are similar, lessons along that line that are similar, different for each of us, but similar for us individually. And every time we come back to that lesson, we're a little deeper in awareness of ourselves and the journey. So we get to learn even more about it.
I, now you saying it that way, I can 100% see that, to where you get another shot at it,
Yeah,
right?
another shot at it from a different place, though, from a different
Right.
level
Absolutely.
of
A different,
perspective.
a different awareness.
And you can't get it right or you can't get it wrong, but you can deepen your learning of that particular situation for you, I think.
Wow. That's probably one of the most inspiring things today for me. Because to me, that's exciting because, especially I'm in athletics and an athlete, and I know that I'm going to compete multiple times. And the exciting thing about knowing that is I know I can work on things to not do it right or wrong, but to
To
differently, right?
refine what it is you're already doing.
Right. And
Through the
and
experience of doing it, you
and to
refine.
think that I can take that same approach, and I am taking that same approach because I'm living it in life, and then looking back at the last, we'll say, 20 years or whatnot, I can definitely see that spiral type of environment. Wow, that was really cool. Sorry, these things bad, I was thinking about that today too, right? So
What's that? What were you thinking about today, Bill?
how deeply I think of things now compared to, you know, even 6 months or a year ago in a sense, right? And how it it's exciting to me, to learn more and to understand and be more aware of different things.
So, what that sounds like you're saying to me is that for a long time you were asleep or sleepwalking,
Yeah,
going
I could say
through
that.
the motions, doing it things automatically on autopilot, and now you've woken up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was an exact point
Nah.
or time. I think that, and I don't want to say, a lot of people associate age with things, right? And I don't think that there's an age that someone becomes more aware. I think that we all experience our own journey, and at different points there's different things. Some people may always just
Be
uh
asleep. Be
right,
asleep.
and then some people become more awake and aware than others, and that's fine.
It's
It's
fine. There's no hurry and there's no timeline that, it's got to apply to. But, I've worked with people in their, late 60s, elderly people who are just waking up.
oh yeah, I could understand that. I have
And
conversations with my parents, and
yeah.
I especially looking at myself and a lot more, uh I know I don't like using the word judge, but just understanding the person in the mirror and being more aware of the choices and decisions and what I have made in the past and how I look at things now, and then how I hope to look at things moving forward, and constantly evolving. And it's pretty fascinating to see those things, and it's exciting. It's exciting to know that you don't have to go through the motions, right? It's not just wake up, go to work, go to sleep.
It can be,
Absolutely.
and that's the path of least resistance, because once you're awake, it's hard to go back to sleep. And so sometimes people begin to wake up a little bit, and then they use all kinds of different things to damp down that awakening.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do with it. It's uncomfortable. They get scared of it, but I think that we as human beings are kind of like perfectly constructed computers. And I think that what can happen is we get viruses, just like a computer gets a virus.
Right.
But we are constructed to be awake. We are constructed to be realized. We are constructed to be aware. And sometimes, often when we're kids, we get infected with viruses. But once we begin to wake up, and we can deal with those viruses because it's our natural state to be awake. It's the state we're meant to be in. We're not meant to be asleep. We're not meant to be asleep. And that's why, that's my approach to therapy. I mean, anything can be undone. Any virus can be dealt with that's in that computer, because it's our natural God-given state to be awake and to be aware, and to be healthy. We're programmed to be healthy on every level.
I like healthy.
I like healthy.
I'm sure most of our listeners like healthy as well.
Well, I don't know. I have a client whose dad has all kinds of illnesses, and he's super overweight, and he's gonna die. I mean, we're all gonna die.
Right.
But he makes choices that keep him feeling less than optimal. Again, it's that thing that we're used to. It's those neurotransmitters.
Right. You become comfortable in the
misery.
Yeah, that took the words right out of my mouth. Comfortable in the misery.
Yep. Yep. And it applies on every level. It's an easy place to go to. Habitually depressed or habitually anything. Because it's a safe place to live.
Yes, it is.
At least in the short term.
Correct. Because like you said, and like we said, that we're comfortable with the familiarity of it.
Exactly.
And I think I said that correctly.
Yeah.
Sometimes my accent,
No, it's not your accent.
Okay.
You want to hear what I think it is?
What's that?
You really do?
Go ahead. Go for it.
Your lack of confidence. You mistrust
No, I understand.
yourself. You mistrust yourself. Like that thing that you read. When I heard you read it on Facebook, you didn't trip up on any word. It flowed. But now you read it on the podcast and you were second guessing every other word that you were saying. So you have a script that runs that tells you incorrectly that you're going to screw up. It's too bad, really, but there it is. It's not as strong as it used to be, because that used to be self-fulfilling prophecy for you.
Oh, all the time.
All the time. So, but there's still that residual lack of confidence, that residual self-doubt that you struggle with.
Oh yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that. And
yeah, nothing to do with accent.
It is my spiral that I'm attacking on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So, but I do have to let you know that I'm working hard on that. I'm talking to IPEC. I don't know if it's the international. It's a coaching university.
Okay.
So they're nationally recognized and
Okay.
certification, and the course is designed in multiple phases.
We talked
And
about it last week.
Mhm.
You, the one, yeah, you were going to charge for an introductory, three introductory sessions, and
Oh
then
no, no, that's my
oh,
teaching. That's outschooled.
yes,
I'm talking
okay,
about training for me to where I become a certified life coach. So,
really?
right. So part of the training, and this is me attacking that spiral, right? So uh the way it works is I would start either in July or November would be my first session. And you go to it's 3 10-hour days in a row where you do you train on site. So you're with certified life coaches and instructors, and they teach you techniques and so on and so forth. And then there's a lot of virtual training, and
Okay.
then you go for a middle session, 3 day, 30 hours, and then you go for a final session, 3 day, 30 hours. And all along, you start off, like I said, they teach you how to coach in person, all the different techniques and whatnot. And then you practice those techniques virtually over the phone, over the internet with instructors and classmates and so on and so forth. And you go from there. So pretty cool, right?
You know, yeah, it's awesome. And it's so interesting hearing you talk about this process from the perspective that you're at right now. Practice, we learn the techniques and we practice the techniques. Well, at the place where I work, I supervise other therapists. I'm
Right.
supervising three other therapists, recent graduates from master,
Correct.
with master's degree. And they're so caught up in technique. And what I find difficult to communicate to them, and I don't know that anybody would have been able to communicate it to me except me, and I finally did, but all I have to do is show up, be present, tell the truth, and not be attached to outcomes. It's
Correct.
all I have to do as a therapist, and as a life coach. That's all you have to do as well. All you have to do is hold the space. You don't, it's not about techniques, and it's not about getting it right. That's part of the process, sure, learning those techniques.
Well, yeah, because I definitely agree with you, but I do believe in the fact that you've been formally taught, trained, and you went and had clients, and you had to be in order to get licensed, so on and so forth. And you're at a point where you, I'm not saying believe, trust in the outcomes or be attached to the outcomes, but your techniques, you are aware, and they've come out of you naturally, right? Does that
I
make
don't
sense?
I don't use any techniques.
No, but I don't think so. When I think of techniques, I don't think of do step one, do step two, do step three. I know it sounds like that, but okay. So we talked about breathing, different breathing exercises,
Yeah, yeah.
different different things that you can practice. Meditation. You had to learn all these, and I call them techniques. Does
Oh,
that make
okay.
sense?
Yeah, different ways
So
of, yeah, different ways of doing it. Yeah, different.
correct.
Yeah.
So in the same aspect, you in the beginning they were looked at as techniques. I'm sure what you learned in school and through you have to, I can't think of, not intern like a doctor, but you had to have some uh patience, right? Isn't that what
You
you told me when you first started?
you
In order
mean,
to get licensed.
oh yeah, I had to have like 1,000 client contact hours.
Correct. So those were the beginning stages where you were
Oh yeah,
learning
yeah,
how to hone your skill. You're at the point now where it's who you are.
yeah.
I
It's
mean, if you meet someone at the supermarket, you're not that you're analyzing or you're being doctor, but just your personality and who you are, I mean,
yeah. I'm not sure I like it that much.
nah.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
But
I don't know.
to me it's different than, I mean, But even like a dentist or an accountant or anyone, right? They're always going to their expertise or what they're trained in and what they practice on a daily basis is going to always come to the forefront, wouldn't you think?
I guess. I guess. I mean, I went to a party on Sunday, amazing party. One of the women that I was in the Vagina Monologues with invited me to this guy's birthday party. Phenomenal. Anyway, she is a darling, and she was introducing me to every person at the party and telling them what I did for a living.
Right.
And I finally said to her, Claudia, please stop telling people that I'm a therapist, because they get the wrong
See, now I'm gonna play therapist with you,
Go
Gina.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that you
No.
drawing the conclusion that that's
No.
how they are
No, they tell me.
perceiving you?
No, they tell me. They tell me a lot of times. I meet people for the first time, and if once they know I'm a therapist, you're not going to therapize me, are you?
Well, yeah, but I think that's people's natural reactions
I
because
like
they
it.
want it. But I think they want it.
Well, then they have to pay for it.
I understand that.
I tell them, if they ask me that question, I say, I'm not working now. I'm not on the clock. But it prejudices them in a way about me and how I operate. It doesn't really give me a chance to be anything that might surprise them. I don't know. I don't know.
I think it gives you even more of a chance to surprise them because in their mind they're drawing a picture of one thing and you're totally the opposite. I'm proud to say that you're my therapist. I'm proud to say that you're my podcast partner and my friend, because it's who you are.
Our relationship is pretty unique, though. I would
understand.
not normally have a friendship with somebody that I was therapist with. I don't do that.
Well,
Because
we were friends.
yeah, it was an unusual.
You actually hired me first.
I know. I know. I know.
So, no, I mean, I wouldn't change anything.
No, I'm not saying I would change anything. It's just
I understand.
It seems somewhat limiting sometimes. It seems somewhat limiting to me.
I know. I agree with you. That's one of this is a whole nother topic we're going in, but I don't like labels and titles and it's kind of crazy how I feel like society wise we're going towards having to have labels and this person is this person is that instead of saying we're just people.
Well, but if we're not part of society, then what are we? And if we don't subscribe to that, then all of society isn't doing it because we're not doing it.
Right. But you just had said that you're being introduced as a
therapist
instead of, hi, this is my friend Gina.
Gina, that's all I want to be introduced.
Correct. And that's my point is like, why can't the world, understand that we're just people? Hi, this is Gina.
We don't know that the world can understand that. Sometimes it can, but I think in this case on Sunday, it wasn't easy. By the way, I have to tell you.
Yes.
Last night, at the cafe right down the road from me.
Yes.
They had I got to bring a client there. It just so happened, but for the first time ever, they had a trivia night.
Oh, wow.
And I never, ever, I mean, I love games, but I never went to a bar or a pub trivia contest ever.
Oh, they're pretty fun.
Oh, till last night. And another work colleague was there with me and our client and myself. And we freaking won, didn't we?
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, it was great. I had so much fun.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, I got to do that again sometime. It was really fun.
Good. All right. I think we're going to end with your victory.
Okay.
Victory.
Yay.
And I hope everyone enjoyed, and I know I have.
Good.
And we'll come up with something, unless you guys want to come up with something and send it our way.
Yep, we've been getting a lot of input from people, so hopefully we'll get more, and we'll totally listen to all your ideas. We like to.
Absolutely. We will listen and share.
Yes, we will.
And
Okay.
if you have anything at all, anything troubling or anything just thought provoking that you wanted to get our advice or opinion or what we thought about it or just hear us talk about it, let us know.
Yep.
Go to Get Focused with Bill K and Gina Fay on Facebook and just post it. So thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Bill.
I'll see you next week.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.